Her hand moved over my drink, just for a moment, long enough for me to see her fingers open and something small fall into the champagne. The bubbles swallowed it fast. Odessa Kincaid thought I was on the other side of the room, lost in photos and hugs and all the chaos of a wedding reception at Magnolia Park Manor. She had no idea I was watching. I moved without thinking it through. By the time she returned to her seat, fixing her dress and putting on that smile she used like a mask, the glasses had been swapped. What she'd done to mine now sat waiting at her spot. Her untouched one was at mine. When Kellen stood to make his toast, looking sharp in his suit, the room seemed to tilt. He said something about love and the future. His mother rose next to him and picked up the glass, the one meant for me. Part of me wanted to stop her, wanted to make noise and draw attention. But people like Odessa don't fall without evidence. So I sat still and watched her drink what she'd prepared, and everything fell apart after that. The morning had started like a dream. Sunlight came through the windows, soft and bright. Tiana, my best friend, was already up, steaming my dress near the doors where the light hit best. "This is really happening," she said, eyes wet. "You and Kellen." I couldn't stop grinning. My face actually hurt from smiling so much. Mom brought in breakfast, coffee, and those guava pastries from the corner bakery I'd loved since I was a kid. She kissed my head and told me how proud she was, calling me her beautiful girl. My sister Jen burst in right behind her, talking fast about the flowers that had just been delivered, about how the venue looked even better than the pictures. It all felt easy, light, like everything had finally clicked into place. The ceremony was small and warm. St. Augustine Chapel with candles in every corner. My dad walked me down the aisle, trying not to cry and failing. Kellen waited at the front, eyes bright, like he couldn't believe this was real. His best friend Rashad stood beside him grinning. His little brother, barely 18 and still growing into himself, looked stiff in his formal clothes, but genuinely happy. Odessa sat front row, holding a tissue she didn't really need. Bernard, her husband, sat next to her, looking uncomfortable in the way people do when they'd rather be anywhere else. We said what mattered, exchanged rings, kissed while everyone clapped, then walked into a reception space full of crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over gardens so green they didn't seem real. We danced to our song. Dad gave his speech and cried through half of it, making jokes about teaching me to ride a bike and how I'd always been stubborn about doing things my own way. Mom talked about partnership and choosing someone who sees you. Kellen's best friend told stories about college that made the room laugh. Everything felt full, alive, and exactly right. Then something shifted. I felt eyes on me. I glanced up from talking to Tiana and my cousin Kiera and caught Odessa staring, not smiling, not celebrating, just watching me like I was something she needed to figure out, like I was a problem that hadn't been solved yet. When she noticed me looking, her face smoothed over. She raised her glass slightly, polite, empty, like a gesture she'd practiced in front of a mirror. "Everything okay?" Tiana touched my arm, concerned. "Fine, just a lot happening all at once." But I wasn't fine. Something felt off, and I couldn't name it. Odessa had never liked me. From our very first family brunch, she'd been cool and surgical, asking 100 questions about my job teaching elementary school, about my family, about where I grew up, made little comments about Kellen being so young, about him having his whole life ahead of him, about not rushing into things. She never said it directly, but the message was clear. I wasn't good enough, wasn't the right fit, wasn't what she'd imagined for her son. When we planned the wedding, she tried to change everything, suggested a different venue, brought me pictures of dresses that looked nothing like what I wanted, tried to add people to the guest list I'd never even met. I'd held firm each time. She'd backed down with that cold smile that never touched her eyes. "Speech is starting soon," Jen said, handing me a fresh glass of champagne. "You ready?" The catering staff had set up flutes earlier at the head table, one for everyone giving a toast, one for me and Kellen, one for each parent, all lined up neat and waiting. I put mine down and slipped away to check my makeup in the bathroom, touched up my lipstick, took a breath, tried to settle the strange feeling in my chest. When I got back, the DJ was asking people to find their seats for the speeches. That's when I saw her, standing at the head table, alone, looking around to make sure nobody was watching, her shoulders turned left, then right,
Her hand went to her clutch, came out holding something tiny, white. She leaned over the line of glasses, and her fingers opened. Third one from the left. Mine. Everything went still. My blood went cold, but my head stayed clear. I walked over fast, footsteps silent on the carpet, picked up that glass, moved it carefully to her place card, and took hers, setting it where mine had been. My heart slammed against my ribs. The DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. People moved around me, chairs scraped, laughter rolled through the room like a wave. I sat down. Kellen took my hand, squeezed it. "Here we go," he said, smiling. I nodded, but couldn't speak. My throat had gone completely dry. Dad went first, made everyone laugh with stories about me as a kid, made them tear up, talking about watching me grow up. Mom followed with something beautiful about partnership being a daily choice, about showing up even when things get hard. Rashad told jokes about Kellen in college, about the time he tried to cook dinner for a date and set off the fire alarm. The room glowed with warmth and laughter.
Then Odessa stood, glass in hand, looking absolutely perfect in her silk dress and pearls. "Today brings two families together," she said, her voice smooth, practiced, the voice of someone used to giving speeches at charity events and board meetings. She looked at Kellen with something that almost seemed like genuine warmth. Then her eyes slid to me, and the temperature dropped. "Maris," she said, making my name sound like something borrowed. "Welcome to the family." She raised the glass higher. Everyone joined in, voices mixing together. "To the bride and groom." We drank. I barely let the champagne touch my lips before setting the glass down. Odessa finished hers in 2 long swallows. For a few seconds, nothing changed. The room stayed bright and happy. Music played softly in the background. Then her eyes went unfocused. She blinked slow, like she was fighting to keep them open. Her free hand drifted up to touch her temple. "You all right?" Bernard reached for her elbow. "I'm great!" Her voice came out sharp and way too loud. She laughed suddenly, a sound that didn't match anything happening around us. Heads started to turn. "Everyone needs to dance right now." She kicked off her expensive heels and ran toward the dance floor in her bare feet. A slow song was playing, something romantic. She moved like she heard drums and bass that nobody else could hear. Her arms flailed, her body jerked to a rhythm that didn't exist. Phones came out, cameras flashed everywhere. Guests stood up from their tables. Then she spun toward the cake, 3 tiers of vanilla and raspberry cream that had taken the baker 2 days to make, and drove her fist straight through the bottom layer. Frosting exploded across her hands and face. She laughed hysterically and smeared it on her cheeks like war paint. "Mom!" Kellen shouted. He and Bernard rushed over. Guests surged forward. Some gasped. Some kept recording. The whole thing was being captured from a dozen different angles. Odessa dropped to the floor in a pile of silk and ruined cake, still giggling. Then her laughter turned to mumbling. Her eyes rolled back. She went completely limp. Someone yelled to call for help. Within minutes, sirens wailed outside. Paramedics came rushing in with a stretcher and equipment. They loaded her up while asking questions nobody could answer. The ballroom looked like a disaster zone. Cake everywhere, overturned chairs, guests standing around in shocked silence or whispering frantically to each other. Kellen stood frozen, icing smeared across his jacket and pants, hands shaking. I went to him on legs that barely held me up and touched his arm. He flinched. 2 thoughts kept fighting in my head, going back and forth like a pendulum. She made that for you. That was supposed to be you on the floor. Now everyone here saw what she really is. Now they all know. The emergency room smelt like bleach and burnt coffee. I sat between my mom and Kellen in my wedding dress. Lace that had looked beautiful hours ago now felt like a costume. Bernard disappeared behind double doors with doctors. Kellen's younger brother stared at the floor, rubbing his palms on his knees. A doctor finally came out, tired eyes, clipboard in hand. "Family of Odessa Kincaid?" Bernard appeared, face drained of color. "How is she?" "Stable, but we found a significant amount of clonazepam in her system, around 20 milligrams. Very high dose.
Does she have a prescription? No, she doesn't take anything. The doctor looked up from her notes. Then someone gave it to her? Or she took it without telling anyone? We're required to report this. Callan turned to me, his jaw tight. Maris, you were near the head table. Did you see anything? The truth sat heavy in my chest. But lies kill marriages before they start. I saw Odessa at the table, I said, my voice shaking. She looked around, pulled something small and white from her clutch, and dropped it into my champagne. Third glass from the left. Mine. Then she walked away. Silence. So, what did you do? Bernard's voice was sharp. I switched them. Hers and mine. Bernard went red. You expect us to believe? I'm telling you what happened. You let her drink it. She put it there for me. What did you want? For me to drink it and collapse in front of everyone? That's enough, the doctor cut in. The hospital already notified police. Kellen stood suddenly, hands going to his head. This can't be real. But it was. Detective Layla Whitaker showed up the next morning, sharp eyes, notepad ready. I walked her through every detail. The angle of Odessa's hand, which glass, how I switched them. The venue has cameras everywhere, I said. We'll pull the footage. Give us a few days. After she left, Kellen stood by the window staring at nothing. They're going to question my mother, he said, voice hollow. What else can they do? We were supposed to be on a plane tomorrow. He turned to me. My mother is in a hospital bed. Our reception is all over the internet, and you're saying she tried to drug you. Kellen, I need space. I'm staying at Rashad's for a couple days. He left before I could respond. 3 days crawled past. Barely slept, barely ate, just replayed everything over and over. Finally, Detective Whitaker called, asking us to come to the precinct. When I arrived, Kellen was already there with Bernard and his brother. We sat in a conference room under harsh fluorescent lights. Whitaker opened her laptop. Watch this. She pressed play. The video showed the head table empty. Then Odessa entered the frame, glanced around, reached into her clutch, leaned over the champagne flutes. Her hand hovered over one glass. You could see her checking the place card, and her fingers opened. Something pale dropped through the bubbles. She looked around again and left. 2 minutes later, I appeared, studied the glasses, switched 2 of them carefully, and left. Whitaker paused on Odessa's hand above my place card. She read the card. She knew exactly which glass was yours. Bernard tried once more. Maybe it was something harmless. She's been stressed. Toxicology says clonazepam, Whitaker interrupted. Your sister-in-law has a prescription. She stayed with you last week. 5 pills are missing. Callan walked to the corner and pressed his palms against the wall, his whole body shaking. What happens now? Bernard asked quietly. We're filing charges. Attempted poisoning and reckless endangerment. She can turn herself in or we issue a warrant. Callan turned around, face devastated. You were right, he said to me. God, Maris, you were right. He came home that night. Odessa turned herself in the next morning, navy dress and pearls. Her lawyer had her out on bail in 3 hours. The judge ordered no contact with me. But cameras didn't stop. The internet turned our disaster into entertainment. The video of Odessa with cake on her face got over 1 million views. Reporters camped outside my school. The principal suggested paid leave until things calmed down. Things didn't calm down. The preliminary hearing came. The prosecutor, Amanda Pierce, laid everything out. Motive, means, opportunity, security footage, toxicology, testimony about missing pills. The defense argued confusion, stress, tragic accident. The judge sent it to trial. Amanda prepared me. He'll say you're vindictive, that you switched glasses to humiliate her. Answer only what's asked. Truth will be enough. Trial started. 7 women, 5 men on the jury. Odessa wore pale pink and victimhood. Bernard sat rigid. Kellen's brother looked broken. Kellen sat beside me every day, squeezed my knee when my breathing got shallow. Witnesses testified. DJ, catering manager, security tech walking through footage frame by frame, toxicologist explaining what 20 milligrams does to a body. Then my turn. I told the story plain, no decoration. On cross-examination, the defense came sharp. You deliberately let your mother-in-law consume something you believed dangerous? I chose not to drink what she prepared for me. You could have called for help. If I'd stopped her without proof, I'd be the liar, the troublemaker who ruined her own wedding. Odessa testified. Said she'd been overwhelmed. Her sister gave her something. She got confused. Amanda destroyed it. Showed the footage again. You checked the place cards. This wasn't confusion, Mrs. Kincaid. The mask cracked. He's my son. Everything was perfect before she came. After 6 hours, the jury returned guilty on both counts. Sentencing, 2.5 years custody, 2 years probation, 7-year no-contact order, $62,000 restitution. Odessa's knees buckled. Aftermath was slow. Charity boards dropped her. Country club revoked membership. Bernard filed her divorce and moved away. Kellen's brother fell apart, then climbed back through therapy. Kellen and I spent months in counseling learning to talk about grief and anger. He mourned the mother he thought he had. I stopped seeing that glass in my dreams. 2 years later, we took a real honeymoon. A cabin by a lake, no phones. 3 years after trial, we bought a small house away from the city. I got pregnant. Our daughter arrived in January. We named her Mercy.
When she was 4 months old, Odessa wrote from another state, said she was sorry. Kellen read it twice, put it in a drawer, never responded. Life moved forward. We had a son, Isaiah. Years passed. 12 years after the wedding, I saw Odessa in a grocery store. Gray hair, simple clothes, basket with basics. Maurice, she said softly, I know I shouldn't approach you, but I'm sorry. I studied her. Not a monster, just a person who'd made terrible choices. I accept your apology, but the boundary stays. She nodded. That's more than I deserve. I kept moving forward. 8 years later, a documentary producer called, said our case could help people. We thought hard, said yes. When it aired, messages poured in, people naming manipulation in their own families. One wrote, my fiancé finally understands. We're setting boundaries now. Thank you. On our 10th anniversary, we went to Portugal. Kellen gave me a silver pendant shaped like a champagne flute. Not to honor the harm, he said, but the choice. You chose yourself. You chose us. Years added up. Mercy learned piano. Isaiah played soccer. We grew ordinary, and it was beautiful. On our 25th anniversary, we renewed vows. Small gathering, just people who held us up. When I saw that pill fall, I said softly, I could have stayed silent. Instead, I trusted myself. That choice saved me then. It keeps saving me now. We raised our glasses to 25 years, to boundaries, to family you choose, to joy that can't be stolen. We drank, tasted like victory. People ask if I wish that night never happened. I wish Odessa had chosen differently. I wish our wedding wasn't viral. I wish we hadn't spent years repairing what control tried to break. But I can't rewrite the past. That past forged us. What I keep is the lesson. Trust yourself. Set boundaries. Tell the truth. Choose the life that loves you back. She tried to poison my celebration. We turned it into something worth toasting again and again. That's the real victory. If this story touched your soul, don't forget to drop a comment of the location of where you're watching from and your thoughts. Also, do like, share, and subscribe.